Yo guys, we got part two by Chat History. It's kind of a while ago. So, well, it's 3 months. Would you call a 3 month old baby old? Huh? Would you? Exactly. So, okay, this is part two of the most embarrassing royal deaths of all time. So let's get right into it.
Embarrassing royal deaths.
Actually, you guys want to hear? Skip to 10 minutes ahead if you guys don't want to hear. I went to Walmart to get a new seat for my bike because the old one was just a plank of wood, basically, but with like leather around it. So I went to get one that had padding because I'd be riding it everywhere. And while I was riding back, I also got pepper spray too because my grandma was worried about me going biking. I wouldn't say biking, or just riding around my bike in the neighborhood because we live in like a sort of dodgy place. Like it's not that bad, but it's bad enough that you gotta lock your doors, especially at night. But as I was riding back, I went down a slope. As I was going down the slope, I was getting very, very fast. So what do you do when you're going very, very fast and you want to not go very, very fast because you see a car passing by? Because this was right in front of a pedestrian walking cycle, so the cars were going by. You press the brakes. Apparently, I pressed the brakes too hard, so then my bike is about to flip. So what do to make my bike not flip? I stick my feet out on the floor trying to, keep some stability. But then my leg gets trapped in between where the pedals and the wheel are. It locks into it, then it flips the wheel right. It flips the wheel. I do a freaking somersault. I don't really do that, but I do flip. And as I'm falling down, I smack my head on the pavement, and Jesus Christ, I messed up this is freaking roads on the cement. And as I was falling down, it wasn't just an immediate stop. I was scraping, so I was like, and I was wearing a t-shirt and not a jacket at that time. I don't know why. Probably because I just didn't wanna. I don't know why I wasn't wearing a jacket. I usually wear a jacket when I go out because it's kind of not cold, but I just like wearing jackets. I'm not wearing one right now because I'm in my house, but it's nice to wear a jacket. So I didn't wear a jacket, so I'm wearing a t-shirt. My leg is and my arms just on the cement, and my head just whacks on it. And luckily, I don't think my head. I don't feel any pain from my head when it hit. Now even I don't feel no pain in my head, which is freaking weird. Hopefully that means I'm okay. I thought I didn't feel no pain in my head because I was running off of adrenaline, but it's been a day now, so maybe I'm still running on adrenaline. Who knows? But my arms freaking hurted. He got my right arm right where the elbow on the top of the elbow and on the bottom of the elbow. Freaking just my arm was like bleeding. So drops of blood were like I don't think it hit nothing major, but there was just a lot of bleeding mostly. No, I'm good now. I put like 5 band-aids on it, so I'm good. James Stew of
At just
Scotland.
6 years old, itty bitty Jimmy II of
Scotland!
Scotland was an
I'm
excited little
sorry.
prince eager to one day inherit the throne from his dear old dad, King James I.
Oh,
And it looks like that day is today. Dad? James I was a victim of a coup conducted by his power-hungry uncle who
I need
sought
to be
to
in full
seize the
screen.
throne. His wife, the queen, was injured but managed to survive despite being an intended target. Although certainly shaken, she stirred up quite the outcry from her Scottish subjects by putting her now very dead husband's corpse on display, and seeing the sheer brutality that had occurred, an all-out manhunt began for the men responsible. And these men were captured and brutally executed.
What do
The
you
old
think
king
what
gone,
was this? Hold up.
and these men were captured and brutally
Dear God, do
executed.
I get a
With
sense
the
of
old
that?
king gone,
This
it was
is
time to
history.
crown
This is educational purposes, YouTube.
a new one. Being only 6 at the time of his dad's dastardly demise, Slimmy Jimmy Jr. was crowned on March 27th.
A 6-year-old as a king. Wasn't that like didn't China? Their last emperor was a child, and that turned. We saw what happened to the Ming Dynasty. So
1437. But since he couldn't make any sound decisions as a drooling youth, his still alive mom took power as regent, acting as ruler on James's behalf. But therein lies the problem. See, the people of Scotland are what we call Scottish. The Queen, now ruling over Scotland, hailed from England. You see the problem here. She was promptly pushed from
Scottish, cool beard, sounds like Shrek. Subscribed. Dumb poofy haircut required. Owns a
power in
claymore.
favor of someone a bit
Everything
more
tavern.
Scottish. Bursting through the door is Archibald
Pardon.
Douglas. He's the king's much older first cousin. He took the job but died a few years later from a fever since there
Earl
wasn't a
of
cowbell in sight.
of Douglas.
Power was then passed to these two fine fellows, Lord William Crichton and Sir Alexander Livingston.
William. That sounds like an Englishman.
Their goal was to keep King James safe and in power.
I see that. I see Salmonella.
Sir Alexander
Anything?
Livingston. Their goal was
I
to
see
keep
him.
King James safe and in power.
These
But in such a
Stickman
hostile political
history
environment,
channels are
with
getting
all
out
of these
of hand.
seemingly random people trying to do their best to position themselves into more power, sometimes it takes a bit of violence to achieve those goals. The best example of said violence being the infamous Black Dinner. In 1440, Lord Crichton and Sir Livingston held a royal dinner at Edinburgh Castle, where the king resided. At the top of the invite list were 16-year-old William Douglas and his 10-year-old brother, David Douglas. They were the sons of former fever haver Archibald Douglas and a threat to the crown. While downing a hock of ham and a bushel of apples or whatever they ate in those times, the brothers would soon learn that this dinner would come with a show. In the middle of the meal, a decapitated black bull's head was aggressively slammed onto the table in front of them. Ooh, dessert. Now, apparently having a black bull's bulbous block brutally bashed onto your beautiful buffet was a Scottish nobleman's friendly gesture of impending doom. Despite the young King James's pleas, the two boys were
Where do they have bulls in Scotland? Where do they get bulls from?
captured and beheaded right in front of them. Hardly
Oh.
appetizing. This historical power move was the direct inspiration for that red wedding scene in the Game of Thrones. Fast forward through a few years of childhood trauma to 1449, and the now 19-year-old James marries a nice lady named Mary, and she shoots out 7 kids. One of them dies.
Damn.
Very sad, but very
7?
typical. With his marriage and coming of age, James's kingship switched from free trial to premium access. However, what was left of those dang Douglases are still fighting to retain power. If only there was a way for a king to take care of such an annoyance. Yeah, that works. James eventually wiped the Douglases from power and yoinked their lands, and he was now in full control of his kingdom. Despite looking super spooky with his villainous vermilion birthmark covering half of his face like that one Avatar guy, I don't know his name, I never watched it.
I forgot.
James was a very successful king. He was super social with commoners and advocated for advances in education, helping found the University of Glasgow in 1451. James was also a huge proponent of modern war technology,
nice.
which at the time happened to be war cannons. These engineering marvels of bronze and iron were critical in besieging forts and castles, as cannonballs would just chew right through them things. While attempting to capture Roxburgh Castle, one of the last Scottish castles still under smelly English control after
Is this the werewolf story
This
where
got-
they threw a big catapult at someone?
Independence Wars, King James II positioned himself next to one of his prized cannons,
Oh.
and after a few words of encouragement to his bombardment buddy, the king gave the order. Artillery!
He just
The mounted metal menace exploded, killing King James II
Explode?
instantly at the age of 29. This rather unfortunate death was cemented in Scottish lore on August 3rd, 1460, and is officially, well, canon.
Philip of Lefranc.
In the middle of the Capetian dynasty, the kingdom of
Speaking of France, make sure to go join 70 in the French Empire.
France was ruled
I'm gonna link their Discord in the video, in the description, if you want to join them. They're a very cool French regiment in Napoleonic Wars. I like them a lot. I'm a Volt there,
by this guy, Louis
or a Voltigeur. They're very cool people. I do enjoy them. They're very nice. Make sure to say hi to what's his name? Olapanos for me. I forgot his name.
Sixth, also known as Louis the Fat, which is just
Oh,
mean.
damn.
He should be called Louis the Body Positive. Anyway, this big fat asshole had 8 kids, and this chapter is all about his eldest son, Philip.
Call me Phil.
As was tradition in the Capetian dynasty to establish a clear lineage to the throne, young Philip was crowned as co-king of the Franks at the tender age of 13, right about the time when teen angst starts kicking in. Although reportedly Louis's favorite child,
God, bro. I need to like always my neck, like the back of the head, the neck hurts. So I need to keep on like it hurts when it's standing up on itself, and I have like terrible posture right now. I need to like hold onto my head at all times.
Philip was a bit of a stinker. He would refuse to listen to his father's authority, fail to pay attention to any of the king's lectures and set standards for being a king, and devolved into being a disobedient little shithead, as kids
He's
tend to
13,
be.
bro. What
According
do you
to
expect?
Walter Mapp, a historic writer during that time period, the continued arrogance and insubordination of the spry little king made him, quote, a burden to all. You know, like when you see a small child convulsing on the floor of your local Target because a 36-year-old man-child snatched the last Pokemon Prismatic Evolutions booster pack out of their clammy little ham hands while the parent just looked on in a dead stare? Hang in there, man. Even though a troublesome youth, the problem would soon fix itself. In October of 1131,
Dude, how
at age
so? Did he
15,
die?
young King Philip was chilling with the bros, racing through the streets on their one-horsepower tricked-out Mustangs, when everything
What the fuck is that?
15, young King Philip was chilling with the bros, racing through the streets on their one-horsepower tricked-out Mustangs, when everything was
Oh,
turned
that was from the video. I thought my door was opening.
on its head. A small sable swine scuttled into the street, right in the path of the oncoming prince and his gang.
Oh.
Philip, who was leading the group, was catapulted off of his horse after it had tripped over the surprise pig. Prince Philip slammed into the ground in a devastating crack and crunch of bone, fracturing all of
It kind of like me. Oh, never mind. It wasn't like me.
his limbs and being rendered unconscious. Tragically, the young king had succumbed to his wounds the very next day. King Louis and his family were stricken with immense grief over the loss of their son. The little piggy went to market, but it should have stayed home.
Why are they all on the same horse, bro? Were they not having on different horses? George II of Great Britain.
George II,
Baton.
King of Great Britain, began life as a tiny little bratwurst in Hanover, Germany in 1683. His
Not even
father,
British.
also George, was the first king of the Hanoverian era and a rather combative parent. Neither George liked the other and would always get into very heated and very public arguments over stuff like politics and other king things. But to be a little more specific, small George despised his dad's advisor, Robert Walpole, the guy considered to be the first British Prime Minister and the one who was really pulling all of the political strings behind the scenes. Think Wizard of Oz, but with a smaller head and worse teeth. But one day, enough was enough. Big George banished Little George from the king's palace after a falling out. The prince was pretty okay with this. He and his wife lived in peace and quiet for quite a
That
few
took
years
me
until,
kids,
well,
though.
the king died. Time to go be a king. Prince George achieved his kingship in 1727 at the age of
Can't
43.
you just be like, no,
Views
just
of
give
his
it to my
reign as
brother?
king were mixed. Despite squashing political uprisings, expanding the arts, laying the foundations for the Industrial Revolution, and overseeing many successful military conflicts, including leading his troops into battle himself at the age of 60, his English subjects just
60?
couldn't get over the fact that he was German, so, you know, they were biased. Growing into his golden years, age started to really take a toll on the king. By 1760, King George II was 76, blind in one eye and hard of hearing.
Bro,
In the
76 back then, bro, you're basically like 200 years old.
wee hours of October
miracle he
25th,
lived
the
that
rather
long.
fermented monarch rose from his bed, drank his iconic 6 a.m. hot chocolate, and excused himself to the loo to force out
And
his
he
own hot
died.
chocolate.
Toilet deaths. Oh, well, that reminded me. We gotta watch the toilet death by Meat Canyon video. I really want to watch it, bro.
But it was here on his cushy secondary throne that things took a turn for the worse. A servant stationed outside of the royal chambers heard a loud crash and comedically tore the door open to find the root of the commotion. What he found was the king on the floor, seemingly having just finished his business. George was lifted
He
onto his
died
bed
of
and
shitting
tended to
himself?
by his physician, but his body crapped out on him. The king was dead. An autopsy of the royal remains
It
indicated
ruptures
that the king
his
had died as a
stomach?
result of a thoracic aortic dissection, the first
What?
reported case in history. See that tear right there in the aorta, the big artery leading into his artery? Yeah, that's not supposed to be there. But how it happened
Oh, did he strain himself too hard on the toilet?
is the question. And it is believed that the blood pressure required to cause such a rupture on an old man's already weakened heart came from a rather forceful push of the pelvic floor muscles. So, in an attempt to relieve himself of his intestinal burden, the king relieved himself of this mortal coil. Remember to stay hydrated.
Bad.
In a time where kings were given rather
Aragon.
displeasing titles such as the Terrible or the Bad or the Slobberer,
The Tiger
Martin of
Fucker.
Aragon was granted the title of Martin the Humane. The
That's
gracious
nice.
nickname was a testament to his kind and caring nature. He basically earned it by being a bit less murdery than any other kings at the time. I mean, all the guy did was reconquer Sardinia, suppress revolts, and led crusades against the Moors in northern Africa.
Liberated the
But other than
Pope?
that, he was a perfect little angel, focusing on internal stability within his own kingdom of Aragon. But times of peace make for soft men. With little to no conflict to tend to in his later years, Martin grew older and wider. By 1410, at age 53, the king was rather rotund, wrinkled, and in a risky state of health, both physically and mentally. You see, his wife and his 4 children had died, leaving him all alone on his
Damn.
throne. He had married his distant and much younger cousin as a last-ditch effort to produce an heir,
What?
but with no success. The depressed and obese king had little more to live for, and would instead gorge himself in solitude. On one fateful night, the king had just downed a whole roasted goose by
A
himself.
hole?
Where
A
does he put it
goose?
all? If you've ever slammed down a large meal too quickly, you usually get some pretty bad indigestion, or as I like to call it, the ERP. Since this was the land before Tums, the king had to sleep off his discomfort. He lumbered up to his royal chambers and shimmied himself into his rather strong bed. To cheer himself up a bit, Martin clapped his greasy meat hooks together, summoning his court jester for some late night entertainment so he could hop aboard the train to Sleepytime Junction with a smile, even
Yeah,
though
that's
he had
the
no
thing I
idea what
do
a train even
sometimes.
was. The jester apparently took his sweet time while being summoned, as he was asked about where he was the moment he entered the king's chambers.
Oh, he broke his
This
arm?
was when all hell broke loose. What the heck took you so long? Well, now hold on. I can't in good conscience let this play out with at least putting up a disclaimer. What you're about to hear is the joke that supposedly ended a nearly 300-year medieval dynasty. This is not for the faint
Okay, guys. Joke warning, joke warning. This joke will probably kill you. Be warned.
of heart.
Leave now if you don't want to die.
You were warned. I was in the next vineyard, where I saw a young deer hanging by his tail from a tree, as if someone had so punished him for stealing figs. The king lost his absolute shit,
What?
reportedly slapping his belly and
Wait, what's the
for
joke?
stealing figs. Vineyard, where I saw a young deer hanging by his tail from a tree, as if someone had so punished him for stealing
Is this literally the first funny cat meme thing? Hey, bro, I saw this funny animal. I saw this funny animal. He was a deer hanging from a tree joke. Killed this guy. Killed a 300-year-old reign of dynasties.
figs. The king lost his absolute shit, reportedly slapping his belly in laughter for 3 hours straight,
3
eventually falling
hours?
out of his bed and collapsing on the ground where he lay dead from an apparent heart attack. With no heirs to assume the throne, the House of Barcelona,
He literally is, man, I'm dead. He literally is, man, I'm dead.
after ruling the crown of Aragon for 273 years, fell after the delivery of a single joke. Now, of course, historians debate if this story is even true, as some accounts have Martin dying of the plague, food poisoning, or complications from his weight. But those aren't nearly as funny.
Alexander Leopold of Austria.
Archduke Alexander Leopold of Austria was
Whoops.
a big dumb nerd. While the
Net?
world of
Oh, he
royalty
liked that.
focused on politics, land grabbing, and who could kill who more effectively, Alex instead played with his chemistry set in the corner, scribbling notes in a language called mathematics. It's no surprise that young Alex took a liking to the sciences, as his dad, Holy Roman Emperor Guy Leopold II, was a strong advocate for Enlightenment principles and the study of natural sciences. Today's lesson is called gravity. Whoa, gravity. But since he was still an emperor's son, involvement in politics was inevitable. Take, for instance, the Kingdom of Hungary. It wasn't officially part of the Holy Roman Empire, but it was somehow still ruled by it. There were governors in charge, but Emperor Leopold was all, here's my son. Make him do something. And thus, little Alex was elected into a lordship position known as a palatine. He had a pretty good time in that position until the Jacobin conspiracy. A group of rebels were trying to have the Kingdom of Hungary break free from all Holy Roman Empire control, instead giving the royal crown to Alex. He very firmly said no, and the rebels were punished severely.
Damn.
With all of this political nonsense, Alex yearned for the simpler times of just mixing chemicals together to see what blows up. So in 1795, at the age of 22, Alex left Hungary for Vienna, Austria, and took up residence in Luxembourg Palace.
For
one summer, the young Archduke decided to turn up the heat and dabble in homemade pyrotechnics, a hobby that is famous for its safe and non-destructive nature. Expecting a visit from his cousin, Alex decided to rig up an extravagant fireworks display inside the palace. Hey, just cause you're educated doesn't mean you're smart. To be fair, he, along with a few servants, set up the show within a fortified armory called a casemate with the intent of firing the rockets towards the outside. So it's not like he decided to just shove firecrackers into a kitchen cabinet for shits and gigs. He was a man of science after all. Nevertheless, all gunpowder and makeshift explosives were stored inside the fortified walls. When his cousin arrived, he attempted to fire off the first rocket, but since Mother Nature has great comedic timing, a rogue gust of wind blew the rocket.
He's making these characters. Like, I've seen these women characters. He's doing something.
Over, launching itself into
I'm seeing a trend here.
Explosives and gunpowder reserves. Everything exploded, engulfing the Archduke and his servants in a goodness gracious great ball of fire. Talk about going out with a bang, am I right?
Adolf Fredrik of Sweden. The name Adolf comes from Sweden.
The title of
Adolf Hitler is Swedish, actually, and not Austrian.
King kinda just fell into the lap of old Adolf Fredrik of Sweden in 1751. During the Age of Liberty, a time in history when the Swedish parliament was all... Adolf's rule as king was essentially worthless. He was no more than a political figurehead while all the real guys in fancy wigs did the ruling. But apparently not very well, because by the end of the Age of Liberty in 1772,
political power shifts to parliament, political instability, great loss of territory, loss of trade, dominance. Why couldn't I read that?
Sweden was kind of worse for the wear. Its land ownership had diminished, trade had evaporated, and technological advancements were lagging. So Sweden was forced to sit back and watch its neighbors and rivals proudly wave around their large, throbbing economies. During King Adolf's lavishly lackadaisical leadership, nothing extraordinary happened. The substandard sovereign did attempt to regain power, but failed to do so, because he sucked. In fact, his entire reign is seen as a dull but peaceful lull in Swedish history with not much to show for it. And unfortunately for the king, the only exciting point in his life, at least from a historical perspective, was his death. According to some historical records,
I would rather have a boring kingship than a kingship that ends with my people getting murdered, you know?
The rather indulgent king had overindulged himself on some food. On February 12, 1771, the king's last supper reportedly consisted of lobster, caviar, sauerkraut, smoked herring, and champagne. Oh, and a few of these bad boys. This is a semla, a traditional Swedish sweet roll stuffed with...
It really looks like it would give you diabetes if you just eat one of them, bro. And that's coming from an American.
The almond paste and whipped cream, and hot damn does it look tasty.
It does.
And that's exactly what the king thought as he inhaled 14 of them. Not surprisingly, all of that food did not sit well in the king's tummy, and all that internal stress is believed to have caused heart failure. The poor guy straight up ate himself to death. Now, before the actually crowd starts pounding away on their greasy keyboards, this tale of his death is regarded as propaganda and as highly discredited by modern historians. The official autopsy report for the king has survived all of these years and has concluded, based on all the evidence that they could gather from sleuthing around the king's insides, that his royal majesty had a stroke. Now, suffering from a stroke is rough, but for a king that wasn't up to par, it's a fair way to go. That's some golf humor.
He was a good king, I would say.
So there you have it. That's part 2 of...
Okay guys, this is going to be the end of the video. Make sure to comment, like, and subscribe, and see you guys later. Bye-bye.